My name is Mary Roberts. I am with the Center for Career and Leadership Development. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile yet, you'll want to definitely make sure you create one when we get done today. But we're going to go through this just with the assumption that you've already created one, that you've got something out there, and that we're going to go through the steps or the pieces of a profile and talk about the things that you want to include in there. We're going to focus a lot on the types of things that would be helpful for you to have so that an employer can find you. A lot of employers are using not Handshake, they use Handshake too. They use LinkedIn to recruit. The statistic that you'll see is typically anywhere from 85 to 95% of recruiters are using LinkedIn to find candidates or to vet candidates. So that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean, hey, when you apply for a job, they're just looking you up. I know we'll do that. We'll look to see, hey, does the person have a LinkedIn profile? Does it match what their resume says? Does their path seem to line up with what they've told us on their application? Sometimes, too, if you're in a field that may require a lot of outreach and networking, someone might even be looking to see if you have a LinkedIn account to see what your network looks like. There's also those recruiters that may pay for some of those extra pieces of LinkedIn that will allow them to do even more. But a lot of employers are using the free version and they can still find a lot of people that way. The search bar that's at the top of a LinkedIn profile or a LinkedIn page when you go into it, that is your window into a lot of different types of information. So one of the things we see, a lot of people create that profile just so they can get to that job board, and they will leave their profile blank. They won't put a picture. They won't put their experiences. They want to look and use that job board. The job board is not going to be as helpful to you if you do not have a great profile. One of the reasons that employer, if you're applying through LinkedIn, they're going to go back and look at your profile. If it's empty, you don't have a picture, they're going to wonder, are you a real person? Are you serious about this job? They're not going to look at you in the same way they might another candidate. So you want to make sure you have a really good profile if you want to use that job board. The other piece to LinkedIn is that it is here for you to expand your network. You want to be able to reach out to alumni, reach out to potential recruiters. We're going to do some exercises today to show you how to do those types of things. We work a lot with people individually to look at this as well in more depth pertaining to your situation. So today is really just to give you the beginning pieces to that so that you could do that on your own. And then hopefully after today's workshop, you'll be ready to start kind of really maximizing how LinkedIn can work for you. One of the first things that you notice on a LinkedIn profile, of course, is the pictures. And so LinkedIn has expanded over time. It used to be you just had a headshot. Now you also have this option to put a cover photo. It will default to something in that cover photo, but a lot of people are choosing to use something that it might relate to where they work. So in mine, I just put picture of our student life center that our department's located in. Sometimes you might have somebody who's in nursing and they put something in the medical field, something that they may feel like brands them as somebody out there looking for, whether they're looking for a job or they're just trying to make connections in their field. Your headshot should be professional in nature, so it shouldn't be, like maybe it wouldn't be a selfie that you've taken. It wouldn't be a family photo, like a group photo. It should be a singular picture of you. It can be in professional attire or business attire, or sometimes you'll see people, the attire they wear in their headshot really relates to their industry. So I think as long as you're being intentional about what the picture looks like, and you feel like it's reflective of your professional image, then it could be appropriate for LinkedIn. If it's just a regular picture of you in a hoodie or a sweatshirt and it's not presenting yourself as a professional, you want to think about doing something different. We do headshots in our office. Another thing we started this semester, we hope to, we'll be able to continue this in the future, but this semester at our career fairs, we have had the Alumni Association and the foundation have sponsored a photographer to come and do those for students. So whenever you see us having those opportunities, you want to take advantage of it, because typically having a professional photographer take your picture is not free. We're not professional photographers in our office. Some of us are good at taking pictures and like taking pictures, but you're to be able to get that professional headshot. Take advantage of that if you've got that opportunity. You can also have a friend take it. It just has to be a nice photo of you. It does not have to be model quality. Just has to be a nice professional photo. So we've got our pictures. The other thing you're going to see here is the headline. So you have your name. You can elect, there's different things on when you edit this profile and you go into it, it's going to give you a lot of different options. When you list your first experience, so if it looks at your job title, or if it looks at your education, if you put one or not the other, that is going to be your default heading. So right now, I do not have the best heading. My heading is just my job title, which for me is okay. But for a job seeker, our current job title may have nothing to do with what we want to do. Or maybe we don't want our headline to just default to student at Middle Georgia State. Maybe we want to specifically say, web developer or editor or public relations specialist, whatever it is we're hoping to be, or whatever career we're working on right now. We can take that information and turn it into our headline. So you can hit this little edit button and it will actually let you change your information. You can even, if there is another name that perhaps you're known as, you can include that information. You can put your pronouns. So that's a new feature that LinkedIn has updated. Here's your headline where you can make an edit, your current position. If I get a new position, I can go in there and add a new one. You can show your current company in your intro, or choose not to. You can pick your industry. Industry, think about the one you want to be in. So don't necessarily think about the one that maybe your part-time job or a full-time job you're in right now that may not relate to what you want to do. You'll see people pick a industry based on the type of company they work for. For me, it's higher education. That is also related to my career field. But some people might pick a different industry. They might pick an industry that more relates to the career they want. So I might work in transportation as an industry, but maybe my career is more related to staffing. So maybe I pick the staffing industry. So just think about what you pick there and how that may also help employers find you too. You can put your education. You can add as much here as you want. While we tell you to not put high school on your resume, you could put high school for education, because thinking about LinkedIn as a way to network with all the people that you've ever known and that could potentially help you in the future. High school, there might be people that you went to high school with that are working where you want to work or doing what you want to do. And so the more people that can find you or that you connect with through your past work experiences, your past educational experiences, it's easier to reach out to them. So LinkedIn's a little different, whereas it can be a lot longer than your resume and it can expound upon all of your experiences a little bit deeper than a resume can. You can put your location. You can use this to help employers find you as well. And then you can add contact information as much as you want to. So you can even put your phone number, you can put email address, you can put a website. So if you have, but only do that if you want people seeing things. It even gives you opportunity to link your social media. You don't have to do that. And if your social media is not professional, if it is not related to what you are trying to do as a career, and you don't, don't put it on there. Put the things on there that they need to see related to your profession. I'm going to attempt to show a quick video about headline samples. I'm going to show just a little bit of it to give y'all some ideas of things that you could use in your headline, because I think that's a really important thing. I just see so many, it'll default to something like cashier or customer service rep, and it's not really related to what that person wants to do. So I'm going to get that pulled up for y'all.
Ready? Let's dive on in. Here's the deal. You have a total of 120 characters to use in your LinkedIn headline. However, LinkedIn, by default, barely uses any of them. LinkedIn only creates your headline based on your current job title and company. For example, web developer at JobScan. That's a lot of unused characters right there. But there is plenty of room to include additional details and keywords that help you stand out and show up in more search results. For example, the default headline could be expanded to read, web developer at JobScan, full stack engineer, front-end specialist, HTML5, CSS3, Bootstrap, jQuery, and PHP. See, now we're at an 111 character LinkedIn headline that actually expands on your specific skills and certifications. And that's something that can actually tell a recruiter or business contact about who you are, what you can do, and those additional keywords can help you show up in more search results. Now let's walk through 3 examples from real job seekers and how they fashioned their unique LinkedIn headlines. Now these are just examples for you to follow. Please do not copy them exactly, but we're going to walk through each of these 3 so that you get an idea of how you can craft your own personal LinkedIn headline. The most important search keyword is the job title. Dawn leads with Digital Marketing Manager and then packs in a ton of meaningful and frequently searched hard skills, keeping them organized with vertical bars or pipes. Next up, we have Amir. Amir is a long-time software developer looking for a new opportunity. His LinkedIn headline acknowledges that he's on the hunt, which isn't necessary, but also includes hard skills that a technical recruiter might search for. Last but not least, we have Meredith. Instead of tacking on to her default LinkedIn headline, Meredith actually bumped it to the end and front-loaded her headline with relevant industry keywords and search terms. The job title will help her come up for specific search queries and adds context to those skills. For someone going through a career change or a student with limited professional experience, coming up with the right LinkedIn headline can be a little bit confusing, but not to worry, we're here to help with 3 specific examples for folks who are graduating from university or deciding to make a big change in their careers. Let's dive in. Kevin packs a lot into his 115 character headline. We know what he's studying, when he'll be available, the exact job title he's seeking, and some of his key hard skills. Next, we have Megan. Megan uses the full 120 characters in her LinkedIn headline to display as much information as possible, still in a naturalistic way. Her availability date is included alongside search keywords like selling, sales, sales management, and marketing. Last but not least, we have Tristan. Tristan is looking for his first opportunity after earning a degree in digital media arts. His LinkedIn headline clearly states the types of roles for which he's qualified, rather than aspiring to, and that he's available and willing to work his way up. The best part about the LinkedIn headline, along with the rest of your profile, is that it can be changed at any time. So if you experiment with a headline for a few weeks that doesn't seem to be working as well as you thought it might, try something else. Try different keywords, skills, and job titles to help increase your results.
I show that video so that we can lead into talking about how to search on your profile, how an employer might search on your profile. So we'll go back to LinkedIn and we're going to play around with this a little bit and talk about the importance of keywords. This is similar to what we talk a lot about with resumes, that employers are looking for keywords all the time, whether they're looking at your resume with their eyes or they're using an applicant tracking system. LinkedIn is similar in terms of an employer is going to type in a keyword to look for you. All right, so if I go up here and perhaps I'm going to show you, let's say I'm a recruiter and I am looking for some of those things that we just talked about in those headlines. I really like that some of those examples even showed when someone would be available. It showed those hard skills. The hard skills are really important. Those are those things that as you're looking at job descriptions for the fields you want to go into, what are the things that you keep seeing that you have that you want to make sure an employer can find? Maybe there's also that particular field you want to go into. So if I want to go into human resources, and let's just put in, I'm just going to put it in graduate and see what pops up. So when I do a search, I also want to indicate what it is I'm looking for. So I'm looking for people since I'm a recruiter in this moment. So and this is just an example to show you when I do that, and let's say I'm a recruiter, these people start to pop up. So if I'm trying to find a position, fill a position, I might reach out to these people. Now I'm going to get probably more specific and type in my location so that, maybe I'm finding people that are a little bit more interested in where my location is. So the more information you've got out there, the more apt somebody is to find you. You can also, of course, search on your own for employers that maybe you're looking for. And one example is to actually look for people who may have recruiter in their title or talent acquisition specialist. It might even be manager. It really depends on the company you want to work for and the way they do their hiring. So the larger the company, the more likely that they are going to have those specific people called recruiters. But if you're looking at an organization that maybe only has 25 employees, those organizations are more flat. They're not going to have as many people with just a singular role. It might be the president of the company themselves doing the hiring. So you've got to, do your research about the kinds of organizations you're thinking about working for when you start going into LinkedIn. So I was playing around yesterday with this, and so I just typed in recruiter, and I did Microsoft, and I did Atlanta. The more information I put in there, the more filtered it's going to become. Obviously, Microsoft probably has recruiters all over the United States and throughout the world. So I was more interested in finding somebody for Atlanta. So it's singled in on people. There's some different ones that pop up. One of the things I want to point out too, you see people that pop up as either a second connection, a third connection. If it's someone you already know, it's a first connection. Those second connections means that you've got some mutual connections already, and it'll actually tell you who it is. So what was interesting to me, I'm looking through this and I'm like, okay, who is this person? I'm connected to her through a lot of different people. I clicked on her profile. She's got it set where I can see it. See that she went to an institution I used to work at. And so this is somebody, as I look at her profile, I realize, hey, this might be somebody I want to connect to. Now, if I want to connect to somebody, I want to point out how important it is that you always send a message to anybody you're trying to connect to. Now, if it's somebody you've known for a very long time and you're just wanting to connect to make sure they're part of your LinkedIn network, you don't necessarily have to send a message. However, if it is somebody that you do not know, or someone you're hoping is going to provide you with support in your job search or your career exploration. The only way for them to know that you want help is to provide that message. I get a lot of connection requests from people I've never met, and they do not send me a message. One thing I have learned, and I'm not able to pull this up on the mobile side. If you are using LinkedIn through an app, my understanding is that you've got to press a few more buttons to get to the place where it will prompt you to write a note, because it'll just do connect and go right to sending them a connection. I think you have to hit that more, it's like a more button on the mobile side. But if I am wanting to connect with this individual, when I hit connect, it is going to prompt me to add a personal note. If I want to bypass that, I'm just going to hit send, but I wouldn't do that because I would want to make sure, hey, I'm interested in connecting with you. I might say I have students that would be interested in Microsoft, coming to MGA to a career fair, or maybe I have a student looking for an internship. So if I add a note, they're going to limit your characters to 300 characters. So not 300 words, 300 characters. So you have to be succinct. You want to make sure you're clear about who you are, why you want to connect, and you want to be very to the point. Don't be generic. Don't say, hey, we have mutual friends, let's connect. That sounds spammy. You don't want to do that kind of message. But if it's like, hi, Lindsay, I saw your profile. I'm a student in software development and would really like to talk to you about pathways at Microsoft. And so hopefully she would accept, and then she might write me back. If she doesn't write me back, maybe I wait a little bit and then message her again to see if there's a time I can set up to talk with her. I have noticed sometimes people will, just read your message, accept the connection, and not respond. And so sometimes what that means is you can circle back to them, try again. It also means keep trying with other people. You're going to have some people who do respond. You're going to have others that maybe they're not keeping up with their email and their messages as much as they used to. And so you don't want to take that as a personal slight. You just want to keep trying with other people that might be a potential connection. Okay. So we've looked at how we might find a recruiter. I also want to show you some information about alumni and how you might be able to locate them. But before we do that, I want to jump back to our profile and talk a little bit more about the keywords that we mentioned and how you want to think a little bit more about your experience sections and your summary that is going to be on your profile. All of those things are searchable by an employer. So similar to how Google works, LinkedIn's very similar. Anything that might be in your profile, an employer could use those keywords to find you. So even in your about section, which sometimes we'll call a summary when we talk about LinkedIn, they call it about. You have an opportunity to really put in information about your key skills, maybe your years of experience, things that you hope someone will find about you. Same goes for the things that you're putting in your descriptions. Each of your descriptions gives you a place to actually talk about your skills too. So you can pick key skills for every position you've ever had. And so that could be searchable as well. You also have the option of creating your own public URL. And one thing that I learned recently that I did not realize, you can actually put keywords in your public profile URL so that you're more findable based on that field you want to be into. Most of us just change it to our name or maybe some, a quick, abbreviation of our name, but really it would be better, maybe I put higher education. That's all I could think of. I couldn't be creative enough. But you could do, human resources, marketing, public relations, counseling, whatever it is you're wanting to go into, you could add those keywords The more things that you have related to your field throughout your profile, you are more likely to come up in those searches. I have had students get contacted by a recruiter that way, find out about a job, and apply for it and get it. You may get contacted by things you're not interested in. That is okay. But just being able to have that profile out there that provides that opportunity to connect in a passive way can be a pretty cool thing. But the big thing to focus on is that proactive outreach that you need to be doing. If you set up LinkedIn and only use it hoping someone's going to find you, then you may be more disappointed. So you want to put that proactive approach into it as well. And that's why we want to talk about the alumni section. So we're going to go back to the homepage of LinkedIn. We're going to go back to that search area. If I type in Middle Georgia State University, or any kind of organization I'm looking for, most large organizations are going to have a page. So if I'm looking for the Home Depot, maybe I want to work there. Maybe I want to work for the CDC. So this is another tip, just for whether it's doing research on a company that you want to work for or one that you're interviewing with. LinkedIn is another good resource for that. The bigger the company, you're going to be able to follow them, look at jobs. Some of them have videos. A lot of big companies have really built up their LinkedIn page because they know people are going there to learn about working for them. So that's a really good resource for you. They've got a lot of jobs. You can click on them. Typically, it's going to, it tells you even how many people have applied for them. It'll let you save the job. It'll also let you see what people work at that organization. So that's another way to potentially connect with people that you are wanting to maybe learn from in terms of what they do at that organization you're interested in. Again, it'll tell you how you might be connected to them already. So that's another great hint. Similar to that, we've got our alumni page. So I'm going to go back to Middle Georgia State University. And just like when we looked at the CDC, it's set up like a company page. So sure, I can look at jobs, I can look at videos if the organization has set those things up. But instead of people, it says alumni. So often we get those questions of, where do our alumni work? How can I make connections with alumni? Do you have a list? Well, think about if we had a list, that list changes. I mean, probably by the minute. People change jobs by the minute. They move, they change locations. A lot of schools, we used to have alumni directories that were published in a big book. People probably also back then weren't as mobile. Now it would be really hard to do that. And so LinkedIn has really become a tool for us to look at what alumni are doing. You can also, I think there's that piece of, I want to reach out and make a connection and talk to people. But there's also that curiosity of, well, how do I put my career path together so that I can end up where I want to be down the road? And maybe there is an alum who majored in what I majored in, or they're doing the career I want. And if I look at what their career path is, that might inspire me, or it might even show me alternates to that career path that I hadn't thought about. Always remember, career isn't linear. Everybody gets to the career they're in a different way, even if they're in the exact same career. So when I click on the alumni button, it shows that we have 18,000 plus alumni who on their LinkedIn profile have said, hey, I went to Middle Georgia State. That will also, if they have updated their profile, that includes people who may have gone Middle Georgia College or Macon State years ago. So it's based on what they've put on their profile. I can search this by keyword too. So, some of the things that we have, we've talked about, we did human resources, we've done marketing. We'll just type in marketing for this one. And when I do that, these people down here show up because somewhere in their profile is the word marketing. Now, I can be a little bit more specific with that. Maybe I really want to look at where they work, or I want to look at where they live. Maybe instead I want to look at what they do. I might even want to look at their skills or what they studied. This is a pretty popular area that people want to look at. They might say, I really want to know what other people in my psychology major, what do they end up doing? So I'm going to click on that. And everybody below has more than likely put in their profile that psychology was their major. And then I could actually click on their profile and learn a little bit more about them. I can also look and see where they work. Maybe I want to work at the Air Force Base. We have a lot of people interested in that. So usually if it says United States Air Force, it doesn't mean they're in the Air Force. It means they work at Robins Air Force Base. And so I might click on somebody to learn more about what they do and how they got to where they are. We also get a lot of questions too about where do all our alumni work. So it's kind of interesting to see the breakdown of the most popular employers. You can certainly do that by location as well. So if I just look at the state of Georgia, it changes a little bit. I just look at Macon, or perhaps I want to look at the Atlanta area. Maybe I want to go outside of Atlanta, go outside of Macon. And just like when we looked at the employers, when I find somebody I'm interested, maybe I want to work at Delta. Here's somebody who I click on them. Let's see. I can do the same thing where I click on that connect and I can send her a message. So we're going to go back up here to the profile. I want to point out a few more things to you. A few things I wanted to point out that I think are pretty interesting that I looked at yesterday that I did not realize. So there is this skills section. So you can go in here and add those hard or soft skills that you want employers to see about you, pull up in a search. There are also, kind of depending on how long you've used LinkedIn, there used to be where people could endorse your skills. So I've got some of those on my profile. But what I thought was interesting, this demonstrate your skills section. And some of this is in a beta test. So they've got these different roles. I didn't look at these, but I looked at these skills assessments. And what was really funny to me, a lot of us talk about, everyone knows Microsoft Word, they know PowerPoint. And so I did the Microsoft Word one and I got a 56%, and it told me that I would have to do it again in 6 months, that I could not add that to my profile. So I thought this was pretty interesting. It asked questions that really dug into your knowledge. So some of these might be good things to look at. I would definitely the Excel one, just because that's one we hear from employers all the time. You need to know how to use Excel. People can come in and maybe type stuff into the database, but that's all they can do. And they can't do the higher level things like formulas or the data analysis, the pivot tables. So I would check this out. Outlook is another one that I think, yeah, we can check our email, but then maybe we sit down to use more of the calendar and the task section. I think that's another one I probably need to play around with. But yeah, I was surprised at how hard the Microsoft Word test was and that I did not pass it. Just kind of a cool thing there that you can add to your profile now. They're always adding new things to LinkedIn. And so I always have to go back and study it a little bit and learn new things. So I kind of feel like I'm learning right along with you. The recommendation section that's continued to be a piece of LinkedIn that's very popular. I hear a lot of people say, hey, you need to reach out to individuals and ask them to recommend you. I have not been great about doing that. I'm one of those people, I don't post constantly on Facebook about, or even on LinkedIn about my work and what I'm doing. And I don't self-promote very well. Many people on LinkedIn are very good about that. They're always in there posting, they're liking things, they're sharing articles. Some of the information I've read says that even people who post and share the most, and it has to be professional. It can't, go back. It can't be like what you post on Facebook and Instagram. It has to be those things related to your professional life. But the people who do that the most, they will show up in searches more frequently as well. Thinking about being that LinkedIn influencer could also help you make those connections in your professional field. Organizations, that's where you can put those things that you've been involved in. Be specific about what you include. It does not have to be every club you belong to since high school, but particularly those things that you feel are related to your profession. There's also an interest section. So that's going to record any of the companies you follow, if there's influencers that you follow, so if there's companies you're interested in, or maybe colleges that you've attended. You can also join groups, and this is another great place to hear about job posting. Let's go ahead. I'm sure people have questions that brought them to this session today. I want to make sure I give enough time for people to present the question for the group that we can look at. You can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and then we can call on people individually. While we're kind of waiting on, see if anybody has questions, we'll go to the job section for a moment. I do want to point out a few things. I would definitely, I haven't spent a lot of time in here to really vet all of this, but, LinkedIn in general provides really good information about career planning. So you might take a second to look at like their interview prep. They have a resume builder. I've not tried that out. One thing I would recommend though, if you're doing resume building and you're trying to use a template or something that's kind of pre-made online, be careful about that. If it, takes a one-page resume and turns it into 5 just because of spacing, or it creates tables and images that would block an applicant tracking system when you're applying to jobs, those aren't the best things. I've seen people, take the resume they created on Indeed and want to just use that for all of their job applications. I know that one doesn't look great. So be careful about that. But again, I haven't tried it out, so it might be great. You can set up job alerts in LinkedIn. So there's a lot of tools here. So it looks like we've got a question from Sarah Jane. For LinkedIn, how long should graduation years be included, especially if there is a big gap in education or skills? What if you don't have much job experience? Okay, so how long should graduation years be? Oh, how long should you include it in LinkedIn? And I think we get that question a lot with resumes as well. When we look at LinkedIn, we'll just go to my profile. We'll look at that edit piece and see what options we have. But I don't think you have to put it. You could leave it blank. I think, I include it so that they know I finished, that they know I didn't just attend. But I think it's really up to you. I know sometimes we leave those things off if maybe we're like, well, I don't want them to know how old I am, or maybe I am worried about gaps. So I think everybody's situation is a little different. And so one thing I can say too, if you have been, kind of that traditional college student that has worked and gone to school kind of at the same time, nobody's really worried about employment gaps there. Oh, I went to school for a year, but I didn't work. Nobody's really paying attention to that. Kind of think about your time holistically. Were you in college for 4 years, then you worked, and then you went back to college? If they can kind of account for all of your time, people don't really see that as gaps. Gaps are when it looks like you didn't do anything. And so that's where, if you're like, well, I volunteered during that time, or, I was involved with groups at maybe you were raising children and your children were involved in things and you were a leader in that, or just a volunteer. You can include things like that. There's different ways to word that. And so just think about how your time looks holistically. And then, you make those individual decisions about whether you think those dates are important. Think about that recruiter who might be looking at your profile. Would those dates fill in gaps for them, or is it not even needed? I mean, just think about too, when you're applying for jobs, and one thing I wanted to point out with the job section on LinkedIn, there are even jobs that some companies will purposely post on LinkedIn. There are some, though, that will show up on LinkedIn that are not, like I know our Middle Georgia State ones show up on there, and we're not paying to post on LinkedIn. So people who are applying that way, I don't know where those are going. You still have got to go to our website and apply that way. And I think there are people who don't realize that. I always tell people, hey, double check. Is it posted on that company's website? Go through their process. Don't just apply with your profile. You can certainly do both. I would do both. I wouldn't just send it out there into the LinkedIn black hole and hope that somebody responds to you. You also want to submit your application the way somebody has asked you to. And in that, in your application piece, there's going to be date requests. But on your resume, you get to choose what you put, because that's typically what they're going to look at first, right? And they're going to decide from there, hey, this person looks really good. And then as they start to dig, they might be looking at dates and things like that. But that, what do you want them to see right away? Does that answer your question, Sarah Jane? And I know you said too, what if you don't have much specific job experience? Are you talking about job experience that would be in your industry? Because I know a lot of times people are worried that, oh, my jobs don't have anything to do with what I want to do. That's where you want to really focus on those transferable skills. So that would be those things like customer service, problem solving, any kind of leadership, even if it wasn't in your title. If you had to train people, if you had to, maybe the boss asked you to sometimes close up, or they weren't there and you were kind of, loosely put in charge, like those types of things where you've had to exercise skills that someone wouldn't know was in your job. Sure, if you're a cashier, they know that you had to take money, you had to run the cash register, but what they may not be thinking about is how you've had to problem solve, think on the spot, know other types of information, work with management. So always think really deeply about every job you've had, even the ones you think that are not significant, and focus on pulling out those skills and experiences that keyword search might pull up. One thing I wanted to point out, when you start typing in keywords, when I type in the job title, it then gives me all these different options. I can actually look for specific companies. I can look for job type, so I can even look for internship. LinkedIn's even giving you the ability to look for remote opportunities. There's this easy apply button. And so that's where companies have set up where they are taking those LinkedIn applications. You can also look at when it was posted. So obviously something that was more recent, that might be something you want to focus on because you know that it was more recently posted and maybe they haven't filled the position yet. Some are going to provide a little bit more information than others. Some are going to tell you if you have, fellow alumni from your schools. Again, like if I didn't have UGA in my profile, that wouldn't show up. So it's important to put, again, even that high school, or maybe even if it was a school you just attended and you didn't finish, that's okay. Put it in your profile. Those people could still be potential connections. And one thing I want to talk about as we wrap up, your profile, you want to have that complete before you start reaching out to people. And then before you start reaching out to people you don't know, you want to make sure you're starting to have some connections on LinkedIn. I think anybody who works in the Center for Career and Leadership Development, so myself or Heather McIntosh, Deborah Maynor, Barnikia Williams, Raphael Villamil, reach out to all of us on, connect with us on LinkedIn. I know our alumni relations director, Natalie Riechbeater, she's really trying to connect with current students and alumni. So you can reach out to her, faculty that you've had, staff members on campus that your former supervisors, co-workers, build up your LinkedIn profile with those people so that it looks like you know somebody. If you only have a couple of connections, I know sometimes that will be, you know, when I click on somebody like that, sometimes that's why I can't connect with them, or I may not really want to connect with them because it looks like maybe they're not real. So go ahead and really build up that profile, build up the connections. And then once you've done that, then you're going to be ready to start reaching out to people. Now, there are going to be some people that there was one Microsoft recruiter, I think she's got it set so she can't get messages. You can only follow her. There are some people, they're not wanting to be contacted. They've paid for LinkedIn subscriptions. You do not have to pay for LinkedIn to use it. There are aspects of it that have subscriptions that give you more, I think, accessibility to people, but you don't have to do that. And I would encourage you to get to know LinkedIn and learn it and feel comfortable with it before you go down that road, because I think it's important for you to really know what it is you're needing when you're using LinkedIn before you decide, oh, I need to have LinkedIn Plus. Even the employers, there's recruiters that pay for a membership, and then there's others, they don't pay for it, but they use it in enough ways that just the ways that we used it today, that's helpful to them, and they can look for people and find them. Well, I hope that today was helpful. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me individually. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.